A Hard Day's Night album. A Hard Day's Night is the third studio album by the English rock band The Beatles, released on 10 July 1964 by Parlophone, with side 1 containing songs from the soundtrack to their film of the same name. The American version of the album was released 2 weeks earlier on 26 June 1964 by United Artists Records, with a different track listing. In contrast to the Beatles' first 2 albums, all 13 tracks on A Hard Day's Night were written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, showcasing the development of their songwriting partnership. The album includes the song A Hard Day's Night, with its distinctive opening chord, and Can't Buy Me Love, both transatlantic #1 singles for the band. Several of the songs feature George Harrison playing a Rickenbacker 12-string electric guitar, a sound that was influential on the Byrds and other groups in the folk rock movement. Contents. Musically, A Hard Day's Night eschews the rock and roll cover songs of the band's previous albums, or a predominantly pop sound. Sputnik Music's Dave Donnelly observes short, peppy pop songs characterized by layered vocals, immediate choruses, and understated instrumentation. According to Pitchfork's Tom Ewing, the lack of rock and roll covers allows listeners to take the group's new sound purely on its own modernist terms, with audacious chord choices, powerful harmonies, gleaming guitar, and northern harmonica. Music journalist Robert Christgau writes that Lennon-McCartney's songs were more sophisticated musically than before. It also features lead guitarist George Harrison playing a Rickenbacker 12-string electric guitar, sound that was influential on the Byrds and other bands in the folk rock explosion of 1965. Side 1 of the LP contains the songs from the film soundtrack. Side 2 contains songs written for, but not included in, the film, although a 1980s re-release of the film includes a prologue before the opening credits with I'll Cry Instead on the soundtrack. The title of the album and film was the accidental creation of drummer Ringo Starr. According to Lennon in a 1980 interview with Playboy magazine, I was going home in the car, and film director Dick Lester suggested the title, Hard Day's Night, from something Ringo had said. I had used it in his own right, but it was an off-the-cuff remark by Ringo. You know, one of those malapropisms. A Ringo-ism where he said it not to be funny, just said it. So Dick Lester said, we are going to use that title. A Hard Day's Night is the first Beatles album to feature entirely original compositions, and the only one where all the songs were written by Lennon-McCartney. Lennon is the primary author of 9 of the 13 tracks on the album, as well as being the lead singer on these same 9 tracks, although Paul McCartney sings lead on the title track's middle 8. Lennon and McCartney co-wrote I'm Happy Just to Dance with You, sung by Harrison, while McCartney wrote And I Love Her, Can't Buy Me Love, and Things We Said Today. It is one of 3 Beatles albums, along with Let It Be and Magical Mystery Tour, in which Starr does not sing lead vocal on any songs. Starr sang the lead vocal on Matchbox during the sessions. It appeared instead on the Long Tall Sally EP. It is also one of 3 Beatles albums, along with Please Please Me and Beatles for Sale, in which Harrison does not contribute to the songwriting. Critical reception. According to music critic Richie Unterberger, writing for AllMusic, George Harrison's resonant 12-string electric guitar leads on A Hard Day's Night were hugely influential. The movie helped persuade the Byrds, then folk singers, to plunge all out into rock and roll, and the Beatles would be hugely influential on the folk rock explosion of 1965. The Beatles' success, too, had begun to open the U.S. market for fellow English bands like the Rolling Stones, the Animals, and the Kinks, and inspired young American groups like the Beau Brummels, Lovin' Spoonful, and others to mount a challenge of their own with self-penned material that owed a great debt to Lennon-McCartney. In his book Yeah, 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 The Story of Pop Music from Bill Haley to Beyonce, Bob Stanley identifies A Hard Day's Night as the album that best captures the band's early career appeal. He writes, "If you had to explain the Beatles' impact to a stranger, you'd play them the soundtrack to A Hard Day's Night." The songs, conceived in a hotel room in a spare couple of weeks between upending the British class system and conquering America, were full of bite and speed. There was adventure, knowingness, love, and abundant charm. A Hard Day's Night was included in the list of 100 essential rock albums compiled by musicologists Charlie Gillett and Simon Frith for Zigzag magazine in 1975, and is one of the Treasure Island albums featured in Greil Marcus's 1979 book Stranded. In 2000, Q magazine placed A Hard Day's Night at number 5 on its list the 100 greatest British albums ever. That same year, it appeared at number 22 in Colin Larkin's book All-Time Top 1000 Albums. In 2012, Rolling Stone ranked it 307th on the magazine's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. A Hard Day's Night has also appeared in critics' lists of the best albums of all time published by The Enemy, in 1974 at number 33, 1985 number 73, and 2013 number 195, Mojo in 1995 number 81, and Uncut in 2016 number 149. It was a featured album in the Mojo collection, The Greatest Albums of All Time, Tom Moon's book 1000 Recordings to Hear Before You Die, and Robert Dimery's 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die, and was selected as one of the most significant rock albums in the Greenwood Encyclopedia of Rock History. Reissues. On 26 February 1987, A Hard Day's Night was officially released on compact disc in mono, along with Please Please Me, with the Beatles and Beatles for Sale. Having been available only as an import in the US in the past, the 13-track UK version of the album was also issued in the US on LP and cassette on 21 July 1987. Stereo mixes of A Hard Day's Night, Can't Buy Me Love, and I Love Her had been made available on the first compact disc issue of 1962-1966 in 1993. Most of the rest of the tracks appeared in stereo on compact disc for the first time with the release of the box set The Capitol Albums, Volume 1 in 2004. On 9 September 2009, a remastered version of this album was released, and was the first time the album appeared in stereo on compact disc in its entirety. This album is also included in the Beatles stereo box set. A remastered mono version of the original UK album was part of the Beatles in mono box set. Track listing. All tracks are written by Lennon-McCartney. Charts and certifications. North American release. The American version of the album was released on 26 June 1964 by United Artists Records in both mono and stereo, the fourth Beatles album in the United States. The album went to number 1 on the Billboard album chart, spending 14 weeks there, the longest run of any album that year. United Artists rushed the album into stores over a month before the film's US premiere. As a result, the Beatles had both the number 1 album and number 1 single in the country when A Hard Day's Night opened on 11 August 1964. All 7 songs from the film, the first side of the UK album, were featured along with I'll Cry Instead, which, although written for the film, was cut at the last minute. The American version also included 4 easy-listening styled instrumental versions of Lennon and McCartney songs arranged by George Martin conducting an orchestra of studio musicians, I Should Have Known Better, and I Love Her, Ringo's theme, and A Hard Day's Night. After EMI acquired United Artists Records, this album was reissued in August 1980 on the Capitol label, Catalog SW 11921. While the stereo version of the album included the instrumental tracks in true stereo, Beatles' own recordings appeared as electronically rechanneled stereo recordings made from the mono releases. 1980 Capitol Records reissue used the same master tape as the original United Artists LP release in fake stereo, despite the availability of several tracks with official true stereo remixes. True stereo versions of most of the songs had been issued on the Capitol album Something New, released in July 1964. Can't Buy Me Love and I Should Have Known Better finally appeared in stereo on the 1970 Apple Records compilation Hey Jude. The song A Hard Day's Night did not appear in true stereo in the US until the 1982 Capitol compilation album Real Music. In 2014, the American version of the A Hard Day's Night album was released on CD individually and in a boxed set of all the other US Beatles albums to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Beatles' first US visit. This CD reissue features all of the songs in both true stereo and mono mixes. Track listing, charts and certifications. Personnel. Sources: The Beatles. John Lennon vocals, acoustic, rhythm and lead guitars, piano, harmonica. Paul McCartney vocals, bass guitar, piano, cowbell. George Harrison vocals, lead 6 and 12 string and acoustic guitars. Ringo Starr drums, percussion. Additional personnel: George Martin piano, production.